After she glanced at her emails and didn't see anything pressing, she picked up the stack of mail from the kitchen counter. Obviously, one of her parents had picked it up at the post office for her, a reminder that it had been a while since she'd checked the box herself. Not her folks, though. They checked often and brought over hers since they had keys to both the post office box and her house. With the coffee maker sputtering and pumping out the much-needed caffeine, she dragged the trash can from under the sink and started going through the mail, automatically tossing the sales papers and the junk. Then she froze and stared at the letter that had been in the middle of the pile. And she knew exactly what it was. Oh, God. Kim didn't open it, didn't touch it. Instead, she pulled out her phone and, without hesitating, called Sheriff Theo Sheldon. Despite the early hour, he answered on the second ring. "Kim?" he said, sounding plenty groggy. Not so groggy, though, since he hadn't missed seeing her name on his phone screen. "What's wrong?" "I got another letter," she managed to say, though her hands and voice were now trembling a little. "I'm on my way," Theo assured her, and in that instant, the grogginess had vanished. Kim murmured a thanks, and the moment she ended the call, she used her phone to snap a picture of the envelope. Something she'd done for the other 8 letters she'd received over the years. She copied the image to the online storage file where she had photos of the others, and she pulled those up now to verify that this one was indeed the same. Not that she needed verification, but it gave her something to do while she waited for Theo. Yes, this one was the same. A plain white envelope. No return address. Kim's name and post office address had been typed on an old-fashioned typewriter. Or rather, Kimmy had been typed. Her childhood nickname. Also, like the other letters, the stamp was affixed sideways in the upper right-hand corner. Maybe the position was some kind of message or clue? But if that was the case, Kim and the Silver Creek Sheriff's Office hadn't been able to figure out what it meant. It was possible the sender had positioned it that way just to play mind games with her, since the figures on the stamps weren't upright, but rather on their sides. Like a dead person might be. All the other letters had been analyzed, of course, and the lab had identified plenty of smudged prints and even some trace DNA, but not enough to attempt to find a match in any of the databases. Maybe this one would be different, though she had to imagine it had been handled by plenty of people just to have made it into her post office box. She considered calling her uncle, Grayson, who up until the past 2 months had been the sheriff of Silver Creek for more than 3 decades. This was his case, too. Always would be. But a call could wait until a more decent hour. Ditto for the one she'd need to make to her folks. Kim knew full well that she wouldn't be able to delay either of those particular calls much more than an hour or two, since it wouldn't take long for word to get out that she'd gotten another letter. And she'd need to do some soothing there. Some reassuring. Of course, any reassurance she could give her parents and her uncle would be a lie, but she didn't want any of them to know that these letters and the memories they stirred up were still eating away at her. But they were. They always would. Still, her parents didn't need to add any more layers to the guilt they no doubt felt at not being able to prevent their little girl from being caught up in the events of that tragic night. A night where 2 people had been murdered and Kim's best friend, Faith, had disappeared. The killer had taken her, and Kim was well aware that it could have been her instead of Faith. Kim got herself that much-needed mug of coffee and went back to her bedroom to pull on a pair of jeans, a flannel shirt, and shoes. It was best for her to be fully dressed when dealing with Theo. Mentally dressed, too. There was always that stir of heat between them. A forbidden fruit kind of thing, and it just wasn't a good idea for her to test that forbiddance or the heat tonight. Not when she was already feeling a little dinged and jittery. With her clothing armor in place, Kim walked to the front window to keep watch for Theo.